I was standing in our living room surrounded by wedding magazines and sample invitations when Jessica walked in beaming with excitement. 5 years together, and in 2 months, she would be my wife. We had built our lives around trust and dreams of forever. But lately, something felt off. Jessica was distant, guarded with her phone. My brother Noah had been showing up more often, offering unusual help with wedding details. Then came the day everything crashed down. Jessica was pregnant, 8 weeks along, with Noah's child. And now, my own brother stood in our living room, declaring he wanted to marry my fiancée. My entire world shattered into pieces I never thought I could rebuild. Before I tell you how I handled this betrayal, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to rebuild your life after someone broke your trust. I still remember the exact moment I met Jessica. It was at my friend Mark's birthday party 5 years ago. I was 32, working as a software engineer at a tech company in Seattle. The party was at a local brewery, and I was talking with some coworkers when she walked in. She had this warm smile that instantly made you feel comfortable. Her dark brown hair fell just past her shoulders, and her green eyes seemed to light up the room. "You have been staring at that woman for 15 minutes, my coworker Thomas had said, nudging me with his elbow. Just go talk to her already." So I did. I walked over and introduced myself. Jessica was a physical therapist who had recently moved to Seattle from Portland. We connected immediately over our shared love of hiking, true crime podcasts, and terrible reality television shows. By the end of the night, I had her number and a promise to meet for coffee the following weekend. Our relationship grew naturally from there. Coffee turned into dinner, which turned into weekend trips to explore the Washington coastline. What I loved most about Jessica was her kindness. She genuinely cared about people, always remembering small details about my day or surprising me with my favorite snacks when I was working late. I had dated other women before, but with Jessica, everything felt different. Everything felt right. Then there was my brother Noah. 4 years younger than me, Noah had always been the family favorite. Growing up, he had this uncanny ability to charm our parents into forgetting his mistakes. When he crashed my first car in high school after taking it without permission, my parents were more concerned about whether he was okay than the fact that he had stolen my vehicle. When he dropped out of college to find himself through a series of minimum wage jobs and expensive trips abroad that our parents funded, they called it exploring his options. I had always been the responsible one. Good grades, stable career, saving for retirement since my first paycheck. But somehow, in our family dynamic, my achievements were expected, while Noah's smallest efforts were celebrated. Despite this, I tried to maintain a good relationship with my brother. He was family, after all. When I proposed to Jessica, it was after 3 years of dating. I had planned it for months. We took a weekend trip to Cannon Beach in Oregon, and as the sun was setting over the Pacific, I got down on one knee on the sand. "Jessica, you have brought more joy into my life than I ever thought possible. I want to spend every day trying to bring that same joy to you. Will you marry me?" I had practiced those words 100 times, but they still caught in my throat. Her eyes filled with tears as she nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, Oscar, yes," she said, throwing her arms around me. The ring was a vintage oval diamond, set in white gold that I had spotted at an antique shop months earlier. It suited her perfectly. When we announced our engagement to my family, my mother cried happy tears and my father gave me a rare approving hug. Noah's reaction was surprisingly enthusiastic. "About time, big brother," he had said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Jessica is amazing. You are one lucky guy." Looking back, I should have noticed something in his eyes when he looked at her, but I was too happy to see anything but support. The next 2 years were busy with wedding, planning alongside our careers. We decided on a spring ceremony at a rustic vineyard outside the city. Jessica threw herself into the details, creating Pinterest boards and scheduling appointments with vendors. I was happy to let her take the lead, weighing in on the important decisions, but trusting her taste on most things. About 6 months before the wedding, Noah started offering to help with wedding arrangements. At first, it seemed nice. My perpetually irresponsible brother was finally showing signs of maturity. He volunteered to go with Jessica to meet with the caterer when I had to work late. He helped her pick out floral arrangements. He even researched DJs and photographers, sending us recommendations. "Your brother has been so helpful," Jessica told me one evening as we sat on the couch reviewing the guest list. "He has surprisingly good taste." Noah, good taste. Are we talking about the same guy who thought a neon beer sign was appropriate living room decor? I joked. "He is really growing up, Oscar," she said, a strange defensiveness in her voice. People change. I started noticing other small changes in Jessica around this time. She became protective of her phone, turning it face down when I entered the room. She started taking longer to respond to my texts during the day. She began making excuses to visit my parents without me claiming she was working on a surprise for the wedding. When I would ask about these visits later, she would give vague answers and quickly change the subject. I tried to dismiss my concerns as paranoia. Jessica loved me. We were getting married in a few months. These small changes were probably just wedding stress or my own anxiety about the big life change ahead. But deep down, something felt wrong. I decided to confide in my best friend Anthony during our weekly basketball game. Anthony had known me since college and had become good friends with Jessica as well. "Have you talked to her about how you are feeling?" he asked as we took a water break. "No, I do not want to accuse her of anything," I replied. "She would be hurt if she knew I was suspicious. It is not an accusation to say you have noticed a change and you are concerned," Anthony pointed out. "Communication, man. That is the foundation of any good relationship." Taking his advice, I tried to talk to Jessica that weekend. I chose a calm moment after dinner, carefully framing my concerns around my feelings rather than her actions. "I have been feeling a little disconnected from you lately," I started. "With the wedding coming up and both of us so busy, I just want to make sure we are still on the same page." Jessica immediately became defensive. "What are you saying, Oscar?" "That I am not excited about marrying you." Her eyes flashed with an anger that seemed disproportionate to my gentle conversation starter. "No, not at all," I backtracked. "I just miss you. We have both been so busy." She softened slightly but changed the subject to wedding logistics. The real conversation I wanted to have never happened. That night she fell asleep quickly while I lay awake, the knot in my stomach growing tighter. In an attempt to reconnect with Jessica, I started planning special date nights. No wedding talk allowed, just us, enjoying each other's company like we used to. I reserved a table at Canlis, the restaurant where we had celebrated our first anniversary. I bought tickets to see her favorite band playing downtown. I even arranged a weekend getaway to the San Juan Islands. But each effort seemed to fall flat. Jessica was physically present, but emotionally elsewhere. She checked her phone constantly. She canceled our island trip at the last minute, claiming she needed to work. And then one Tuesday afternoon I decided to surprise her for lunch at her clinic, only to find her already out. Her receptionist mentioned casually, "Oh, she is having lunch with your brother again. They have been meeting up quite a bit lately." Again. The word echoed in my head all afternoon. Again implied this was a regular occurrence, something Jessica had never mentioned to me. When I asked her about it that evening, she shrugged it off. "Noah has been helping with some wedding surprises for you. It is not a big deal." The next weekend, my parents invited us over for dinner. Throughout the meal, I could not help but notice the dynamic between Jessica and Noah. There was an ease to their interaction, inside jokes I was not part of, and several moments where they seemed to communicate without words. When Noah got up to help clear the dishes, something he had never voluntarily done before, my father commented, "Your brother is finally growing up. Whatever you did, Jessica, keep it up." Jessica blushed and avoided my eyes. Noah smirked in a way that made my skin crawl. As the wedding drew closer, just 3 months away, Jessica dropped another bombshell. We were reviewing our budget spreadsheet when she suddenly said, "I have been thinking, maybe we should postpone the wedding a bit. Give ourselves more time to save money." Postpone. All the deposits are paid. Invitations are about to go out, I said, shocked by the suggestion. "Where is this coming from?" "I just want our day to be perfect," she replied, twisting her engagement ring, something she did when she was anxious. "And sometimes I wonder if we are rushing things." "Rushing? We have been together for 5 years and engaged for 2, I reminded her. "How is that rushing?" "I did not say we were rushing, just that it might feel that way," she snapped back. The conversation devolved into our first real argument in months, ending with Jessica sleeping in the guest room that night. The discovery happened exactly 8 weeks before our wedding date. I was looking for batteries in Jessica's bedside drawer when I found it a pregnancy test. A positive pregnancy test. My heart leaped. Despite our recent tension, the idea of starting a family with Jessica filled me with joy. We had always talked about having children, though we had planned to wait a year after marriage. When Jessica got home, I was sitting on the couch with the test in my hand and tears in my eyes. "Were you going to tell me?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Her face went pale. She set her purse down slowly and sat across from me, not next to me. That was when I knew. "Oscar, I need to tell you something," she began, her voice shaking. "I am pregnant." I can see that, I said, trying to keep my tone even. "Why did you not tell me?" "Because—" She took a deep breath. "I am 8 weeks along. 8 weeks. My mind raced through calculations. 8 weeks ago, I had been in Portland for a week-long conference. We had not been intimate for nearly 2 weeks before I left. There was no way this was my child. Who, I asked, though deep down I already knew the answer. Jessica broke down in tears, confirming my worst fears. "Noah, it just happened. We were planning your surprise bachelor party, and one thing led to another. I never meant for it to happen. We never meant to hurt you." The affair had started 3 months earlier, she confessed. What began as innocent wedding planning meetings had evolved into long conversations, shared secrets, and eventually physical betrayal. All while I was working hard to support our future, often putting in extra hours to save for the honeymoon I thought Jessica would love. "I still love you, Oscar," she insisted, tears streaming down her face. Noah and I just connected in a way I was not expecting. I was going to end it, I swear. I was confused. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. The room seemed to tilt as I tried to process her words. My fiancé. My brother. A baby. Betrayal upon betrayal. "I need to talk to Noah," I said, finally grabbing my keys. "Oscar, wait." Jessica called after me, but I was already halfway to my car. I drove to Noah's apartment in a haze of rage and disbelief. He opened the door, looking unsurprised, as if he had been expecting me. "Jessica called you," I stated flatly. "She did," he confirmed, stepping aside to let me in. "Look, Oscar, I know you are upset." "Upset?" I laughed bitterly. "You slept with my fiancée. She is pregnant with your child." Upset does not begin to cover it. Noah had the audacity to look defiant rather than remorseful. "These things happen, Oscar. You cannot control who you fall in love with." Love. The word felt like acid on my tongue. "You are claiming to love her after knowing her how long, while she was engaged to your brother." "It is different with us," Noah insisted. "I know this is hard for you to hear, but Jessica and I have a connection that you and she never had. And now with the baby." "Do not bring the baby into this," I warned, my fists clenching at my sides. "The baby changes everything," Noah continued, ignoring my warning. "I am going to step up. In fact," he paused, meeting my eyes with a challenging stare, "I am going to marry Jessica." Something in me snapped. Before I knew what was happening, my fist connected with Noah's jaw, sending him stumbling backward. He recovered quickly, lunging at me. We crashed into his coffee table, years of brotherly competition exploding into genuine violence. By the time we separated, Noah had a split lip, and I had what would later become a black eye. "You have always been jealous of me," Noah spat, wiping blood from his mouth. "You cannot stand that for once I got something you wanted." "Something I wanted," I echoed in disbelief. "She was not something to be won. She was going to be my wife. We were going to build a life together." "Well, now she is going to build a life with me," Noah replied coldly. "You should accept that and move on, for the sake of the family." I left Noah's apartment, knowing nothing would ever be the same again. The family implosion happened faster than I could have imagined. My parents called an emergency family meeting the next day, apparently after Noah had filled them in on the situation. Jessica was there too, sitting uncomfortably on the edge of the sofa in my parents' living room, her eyes red and swollen. I had expected my parents to be shocked, disgusted, even by what Noah and Jessica had done. Instead, my mother's first words to me were, "What did you do to drive Jessica away?" The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "What did I do?" I repeated incredulously. "Jessica is such a lovely girl," my mother continued. "She would not have turned to Noah unless something was wrong in your relationship." I looked to my father for support, but he just sighed heavily. "These things are complicated, son. But the fact is there is a baby involved now, my grandchild." "And that makes what they did okay?" I asked, my voice rising, despite my efforts to stay calm. "No one is saying it is okay," my father replied. "But what is done is done. Now we need to think about moving forward, as a family." Noah sat silently during this exchange, a smug expression barely concealed behind a mask of fake contrition. Jessica at least had the decency to look ashamed. "I think you need to be the bigger person here, Oscar," my father finally said. "Noah and Jessica made a mistake, but they are trying to do the right thing now. For the baby." "The right thing," I laughed bitterly. "Betraying me was the right thing. Lying to me for months was the right thing." "Oscar, please," Jessica spoke up, her voice small. "We never meant to hurt you. You never meant for me to find out." I corrected her. "There is a difference." The meeting ended with my mother in tears, my father disappointed in my inability to forgive, and me walking out finally understanding a painful truth: my family would never truly be in my corner. Noah would always be the favorite, the one whose happiness mattered most, even at my expense. The next few weeks were a blur of pain and practicalities. Jessica moved out of our apartment, and in with Noah, taking most of our shared furniture since she would need it for the baby. Meanwhile, Noah and Jessica began a calculated campaign to control the narrative among our social circle. My phone filled with confused messages from friends who had heard various versions of what happened. According to Noah and Jessica, I had been emotionally distant, working too much, and neglecting Jessica's needs. They claimed their connection had been innocent, at first a shoulder to cry on that evolved naturally into something deeper. Some friends even heard that I had suspected Jessica of cheating and had become controlling and paranoid, essentially pushing her into Noah's arms. The pregnancy was their trump card. It transformed their betrayal into a love story in many people's eyes. "Things happen for a reason," one mutual friend actually told me. "Maybe this baby is the universe's way of showing who should really be together." I lost friends I had known for years, people who chose to believe the more palatable version of events rather than accept the painful truth. The couple who had introduced me to Jessica even agreed to be in Noah and Jessica's wedding party. I moved out of our apartment and into a hotel, unable to bear the memories in every corner of what was supposed to be our home. I stopped going to family dinners, ignored my parents' increasingly frustrated calls, and buried myself in work. At night, I would lie awake, replaying every moment of the past 6 months, looking for signs I had missed, wondering what I could have done differently. The only person who stood firmly by me was Anthony. He never wavered in his support, never questioned my version of events, never suggested I needed to just get over it. What they did was wrong, plain and simple, he told me over beers one night. Do not let anyone make you feel crazy for being hurt by it. At his insistence, I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Walker. In our sessions, she helped me frame the betrayal in ways that did not destroy my self-worth. This is not a reflection of your value as a person or a partner, she emphasized. Their choices reveal their character, not yours. It was during one of these sessions that I received the call about the wedding venue. With the wedding less than a month away, I had forgotten to cancel the reservation at the vineyard. The manager was calling to confirm final details and mentioned almost casually that there seemed to be some confusion. Your brother called yesterday, she explained. He said he would be taking over the reservation for the same date, just changing the names on the contract. I explained, we would need your authorization for that, which is why I am calling. The audacity was breathtaking. Noah and Jessica were not only taking my future, but trying to claim my wedding venue on the exact same date we had planned to marry. And they had assumed I would simply hand it over along with the substantial, non-refundable deposit I had paid. Something shifted in me at that moment. A sudden clarity cut through the fog of depression and betrayal. I had been living as a victim, reacting to the choices of others, rather than making my own. That needed to change. No, I told the manager firmly. I will not be authorizing any changes to the contract. In fact, I would like to cancel the reservation entirely. I knew I would lose the deposit, but it felt worth it to deny Noah and Jessica the satisfaction of taking over my wedding day. That decision, small as it was, became the first of many steps I took to reclaim control of my life. I scheduled a meeting with an attorney named Samantha to untangle the financial commitments Jessica and I had made together. I documented the timeline of the affair. Based on credit card statements and text messages, I still had access to establishing that it had begun long before Jessica claimed. I set firm boundaries with my family, making it clear that while I was open to rebuilding our relationship in the future, I would not attend any events where Noah and Jessica would be present. I told my parents I needed space from them, as well as they had made their priorities clear. Most importantly, I focused on myself. I started running again, something I had loved in college, but had abandoned as work got busier. I joined a support group for people dealing with infidelity, where I found understanding I could not get elsewhere. I threw myself into a major project at work, which led to conversations about a promotion that would require relocating to the company's Austin office. When the promotion was formally offered, I accepted immediately. A fresh start in a new city away from the constant reminders of betrayal felt like exactly what I needed. I found an apartment online, packed up what little I still owned, and prepared to leave Seattle behind. The night before my departure, I had dinner with Anthony, who promised to visit once I was settled. I am proud of you, he told me. 6 months ago, you could barely get out of bed. Now you are rebuilding your entire life on your own terms. I realized he was right. The pain was still there, but it no longer defined me. I was moving forward, not because I had forgotten or forgiven, but because I had chosen not to let their actions determine my future. As I drove out of Seattle the next morning, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders with each mile that passed. 1 year after discovering the affair, I barely recognized my life in the best possible way. Austin had been exactly the fresh start I needed. My role as a senior software architect challenged me professionally and connected me with a team of creative, supportive colleagues. I had found an apartment in a vibrant neighborhood with great restaurants and live music venues within walking distance. Most weekends I explored the surrounding Texas Hill Country hiking trails and discovering small towns I had never heard of before. Therapy had become a cornerstone of my healing journey. Dr. Walker had connected me with a colleague in Austin, and our weekly sessions helped me process the lingering pain while establishing healthier patterns for the future. I learned to recognize the trust issues triggered by the betrayal and worked actively to prevent them from sabotaging new relationships. I had built a new social circle through a local running group and some coworkers who had become friends. These people knew me only as I was now, not as half of Oscar and Jessica or as Noah's betrayed brother. There was freedom in that clean slate. About 8 months after I moved, Anthony called with news from Seattle. "Thought you should hear this from me, instead of social media," he began. Noah and Jessica's marriage is imploding. Apparently he has been cheating on her with a bartender from that pub near his apartment. I wish I could say I felt nothing, but the truth was more complicated. There was a small, vindicated part of me that thought, of course he did. Noah had never been faithful to anyone. Jessica had been foolish to think she would be the exception, but mostly I felt a profound sadness for the child, caught in the middle of this mess. My niece or nephew, who I had never met, born into a relationship built on betrayal, and now facing the collapse of their parents' marriage before their first birthday. A week later, Jessica emailed me, a long message full of apologies and regrets. She wrote about how Noah had pursued her relentlessly, making her feel special and wanted during a time when wedding stress had made her vulnerable. She described how quickly the fantasy had shattered after they married, as Noah resumed his pattern of staying out late, spending money they did not have, and eventually betraying her, just as we had betrayed me. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness," she wrote, "but I need you to know how deeply sorry I am for the pain I caused you. You deserved so much better." I read the email twice before closing it without responding. Her apology changed nothing, and I no longer needed her to recognize the wrong she had done for me to move forward. My parents had made several attempts to reconnect over the months. At first, their messages focused on putting the family back together in ways that still centered Noah's needs and minimized my pain. I maintained my distance until they finally acknowledged their role in enabling Noah's behavior throughout our lives. "We failed you," my father admitted during a phone call that left us both in tears. "We always expected more from you and less from Noah. We made excuses for him and took you for granted. I do not expect you to forget that, but I hope someday you might forgive us." It was the most honest conversation we had ever had. While I was not ready for a full reconciliation, I agreed to occasional phone calls and promised to consider visiting for the holidays with the clear understanding that I would not be in the same room as Noah. During a business trip to Seattle the following spring, I unexpectedly ran into Jessica at a coffee shop near my old office. She was alone, looking tired but composed as she worked on a laptop. For a moment I considered leaving before she saw me, but something kept me rooted in place. When she looked up and our eyes met, I approached her table. "Oscar," she said my name, coming out as a whisper. "I did not expect to see you." "Business trip," I explained, gesturing to my laptop bag. "Just in town for a few days." An awkward silence stretched between us before she asked, "Do you want to sit just for a minute?" Surprisingly, I did. We talked for nearly an hour. She told me about her daughter Lily, now 7 months old. She had moved back in with her parents after filing for divorce from Noah, who was already living with someone new. She was rebuilding her life much as I had rebuilt mine. "I think about what I did to you every day," she said as our conversation wound down. "Not just the affair, but the way I tried to justify it afterward. I want you to know, I see it clearly now. It was wrong, all of it." Looking at her, I felt something unexpected, compassion without attachment. The anger that had once consumed me had faded into a dull ache that no longer dictated my actions. "I hope you find happiness, Jessica," I said, and meant it, for yourself and for Lily. As I walked back to my hotel, I realized I had finally achieved the closure I had been seeking. Not through dramatic confrontations or acts of revenge, but through the quiet recognition that their actions no longer had power over me. Back in Austin, my life continued to evolve. I had been dating Diana, a graphic designer I met through a mutual friend, for a few months. Our relationship progressed slowly, built on a foundation of honesty I now recognized as essential. I had told her about Jessica and Noah early on, not as a dramatic confession, but as part of my history that had shaped me. "Thank you for trusting me with that," she had said, squeezing my hand gently. Her response, so simple but so profound, confirmed what I already suspected. Diana was someone who valued the same things I did: honesty, respect, loyalty. When Anthony visited for a long weekend, he and Diana hit it off immediately, teasing each other like old friends within hours of meeting. Watching them chat across the table at dinner, I felt a surge of gratitude for the life I had built from the ashes of betrayal. The journey had been painful beyond words. There were days I thought the hurt would never end, nights when sleep eluded me as my mind replayed every moment of deception. But gradually, step by step, I had moved from surviving to thriving. I had learned that self-respect was more important than family expectations. That walking away from toxic relationships, even with those who share your blood, can be the most powerful act of self-love. Most importantly, I discovered that betrayal, while devastating, could be a teacher. It taught me about my own resilience. It showed me who truly had my back when everything fell apart. It clarified my values and strengthened my resolve to live by them regardless of the cost. 2 years after the day my world shattered, I stood stronger than I ever had before. Not because the pain had disappeared entirely, but because I had built something new and beautiful from the broken pieces. Something that was entirely mine. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after someone you trusted betrayed you? What helped you move forward? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming life's toughest challenges. Remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Thank you for listening to my story.